there are truths so vast, so quietly interwoven into the fabric of existence, that they become invisible by sheer ubiquity. Like the air we breathe or the gravity that roots us to the earth, they are the silent architects of reality, shaping everything while demanding no acknowledgement. And yet, every so often, a crack appears in the ordinary, a fleeting glimpse of something deeper, something hidden in plain sight for centuries, waiting for the right eyes to see it. This is not merely about uncovering a forgotten artifact or decoding an ancient cipher. It is about recognizing a pattern so fundamental that it has been woven into myth, art, science, and the very structure of human thought, yet remains overlooked, dismissed as coincidence, or relegated to the realm of mystery. The secret we speak of is not buried in some distant tomb or locked behind impenetrable codes. It is etched into the architecture of cathedrals, whispered in the symmetry of nature, echoed in the rhythms of history. It has been passed down through symbols, allegories, and half-remembered legends, always present, always waiting. Consider for a moment the way light bends through a prism, fracturing into colors unseen until dispersed. Human understanding, too, has its prisms, moments where perception shifts, where the monolithic certainty of what is known splinters into something far more intricate. The secret we explore today is like that hidden spectrum, existing all along within the light of common knowledge, yet requiring the right angle, the right shift in perspective, to be revealed. History is littered with these near discoveries, these almost revelations. The Pythagoreans glimpsed it in the harmony of numbers, the mystics in the geometry of sacred spaces, the alchemists in their quest for transformation. Each brushed against it, like fingertips grazing the edge of an unseen tapestry, sensing the pattern but never pulling the thread that would unravel the whole design. And so it remained, hovering at the periphery of human awareness, a truth too vast to be held by any single era, yet too persistent to ever fully disappear. What makes this secret so potent, so transformative, is not just its concealment, but the way it reorders understanding once seen. It is not a static fact but a living key, one that unlocks doors in perception, in creativity, in the very way we navigate existence. To recognize it is to see the world anew, to find the hidden currents that move beneath the surface of things, the invisible hand that has shaped civilizations, philosophies, and even the contours of individual lives. And so we begin at the threshold, standing before the veil of the obvious, where the most profound truths are often the ones we have stopped questioning. The journey ahead is not one of excavation, but of recognition, of seeing what has always been there, waiting for the moment when the scales fall away, when the secret steps out of hiding and into the light. To speak of a secret hidden in plain sight is to speak of the paradoxical nature of human perception, how the mind filters the world through layers of assumption, habit, and cultural conditioning, rendering certain truths invisible not by their absence, but by their omnipresence. The core themes of this revelation are not locked away in some distant vault, they are embedded in the very structures we take for granted, in the rhythms of nature, in the myths we tell, in the geometries that shape our world. At its heart, this secret is about pattern recognition, the way reality organizes itself in repeating, fractal-like designs that echo across scales, from the microscopic to the cosmic. The ancients knew this intuitively, encoding these patterns in sacred art, temple alignments, and oral traditions. The golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, the recurring motifs of creation myths, these are not mere curiosities but fragments of a deeper syntax, a language written into existence itself. Yet somewhere along the way, modernity dismissed them as coincidence or superstition, severing the thread that connected empirical observation to metaphysical wonder. Another fundamental pillar is the concept of mirroring, the idea that the macrocosm reflects the microcosm, that the vast and the infinitesimal are bound by the same organizing principles. The mystics spoke of, as above, so below, while modern physics reveals the eerie symmetries between galactic clusters and atomic structures. This is not poetic metaphor but observable reality. The same spirals that shape galaxies appear in seashells, the same branching patterns govern rivers and veins, the same harmonics that structure music resonate in planetary orbits. The secret, then, is not a single fact but a dynamic interplay, an intelligence embedded in form itself, a kind of cosmic artistry that repeats its signatures everywhere, if only we learn to see them. Yet perhaps the most elusive theme is the illusion of separation, the way humanity has been conditioned to perceive itself as distinct from nature, from history, even from its own subconscious. The secret dismantles this illusion, revealing the interconnectedness of all things, the hidden currents that link individual lives to grand historical cycles, personal transformation to collective evolution. This is why the truth has remained both hidden and in plain sight, because to acknowledge it fully is to dissolve the boundaries we rely on for a sense of control, to admit that we are participants in a vast, animate design far older than our civilizations. And then there is the question of why. Why has this pattern persisted? Why has it been encoded and preserved across millennia, even as surface-level knowledge rises and falls? The answer may lie in its function. This secret is not merely informational but transformational. It is a catalyst, a key that unlocks higher orders of understanding when the seeker is ready. Like a riddle that cannot be solved by logic alone, it demands a shift in perception, a willingness to see the world not as a collection of isolated phenomena but as a living, breathing tapestry of meaning. These themes, pattern, mirroring, interconnectedness, and transformation, are not isolated. They weave together into a single, luminous fabric, a kind of meta-language that has been whispered through time in symbols, in art, in the unconscious archetypes that arise across cultures. To engage with them is not merely to learn something new, but to remember something ancient, something encoded within us, waiting to be recognized. There is a story, older than writing, older than temples, that has been told in 1,000 forms across 1,000 cultures. It is the story of the lost thing that was never truly lost, the treasure buried not in the earth but in the collective memory of humanity. This is the deeper narrative layer of the secret we are unraveling, not just a static truth, but a living current that flows through myth, religion, and even the unconscious patterns of history itself. Consider the recurring motif of the forbidden or overlooked door. In fairy tales, it is the one room that must not be entered, the chamber that hides either terrible danger or unimaginable treasure. In ancient mysteries, it is the veil of the temple, the threshold between the profane and the sacred. And in our own lives, it is the intuitive knowing that there is more to reality than we've been taught, an itch at the edge of perception, a sense that something vital is being missed. This door is not hidden in some far-off place, it is embedded in the everyday, waiting for the moment when someone finally thinks to turn the handle. Then there is the allegory of the blind seers, those who possess profound knowledge yet fail to recognize its full meaning. The biblical Esau sells his birthright for a meal, not realizing what he has surrendered. The alchemists toil over lead, unaware that their formulas describe inner transformation as much as physical change. Even modern science, for all its brilliance, often fragments knowledge into specialties, missing the unifying patterns that connect quantum physics to consciousness, biology to symbolism. The secret has always been visible to those who know how to look, yet its very obviousness has rendered it invisible to minds trained to overlook the connective tissue of reality. One of the most potent symbolic narratives is that of the hidden lineage, the idea that certain truths have been preserved not in books or institutions, but in plain sight through art, architecture, and oral tradition. The great cathedrals of Europe, for instance, are not merely places of worship but three-dimensional puzzles, their geometries encoding esoteric principles accessible to those with the eyes to see. Folk tales, too, carry layers of meaning beneath their surface, with stories of humble third sons and cunning tricksters often serving as vessels for initiatory wisdom. This is how the secret survives centuries of suppression, upheaval, and cultural amnesia, by disguising itself as something ordinary, something unthreatening, something that the uninitiated would dismiss as mere decoration or superstition. Perhaps the most profound narrative of all is the eternal return, the cyclical nature of time that appears in everything from Hindu cosmology to the myth of the phoenix. This is not mere repetition but spiralic evolution, the idea that history moves in rhythms, returning to similar themes at higher levels of complexity. The secret is woven into these cycles, acting as both a map and a key. Understanding it allows one to recognize the patterns of the past as they emerge in the present, to anticipate the unfolding of events not through prophecy but through an awareness of the deep structures that shape reality. These narratives are not mere stories. They are the language in which the secret has been preserved, a language that speaks in symbols, in cycles, in the gaps between what is said and what is meant. To engage with them is to begin a kind of dialogue with the unseen intelligence that has guided humanity's journey, leaving breadcrumbs in plain sight for those willing to follow their trail. The greatest secret is worthless if it remains abstract, if it dazzles the mind but fails to reshape the way we move through the world. What makes this hidden knowledge so vital is that it is not locked in ancient texts or reserved for initiates in shadowy chambers. It is a living current, one that rewires perception and alters the very fabric of daily existence once integrated. To grasp it is to gain a new lens, one that reveals opportunities, connections, and solutions where others see only chaos or coincidence. Recognizing the patterns in everyday life. The first practical shift is the cultivation of pattern awareness. Just as a musician begins to hear the underlying structures in a symphony, or a linguist detects root meanings in unfamiliar words, the observer of this secret starts to see repetitions in events, relationships, and even personal challenges. History does not repeat, but it rhymes, and those who learn its meter can navigate uncertainty with surprising grace. For example, consider the way societal movements tend to mirror individual psychological processes. A culture suppressing its shadow elements will inevitably face upheaval, just as a person denying their darker impulses eventually experiences crisis. Recognizing this allows one to anticipate shifts, not through mysticism, but by observing the recursive logic of systems. On a personal level, it means viewing one's own struggles not as isolated misfortunes, but as part of a larger, intelligible process. A failed venture might reveal itself as the necessary precursor to a more aligned path. A period of stagnation might be the gestation phase before a creative breakthrough. Decision-making through symbolic literacy. The Secret also offers a way to decode the symbolic language of circumstance. In indigenous traditions, omens and synchronicities are read as guidance from the animate world. While modernity dismisses this as superstition, the underlying principle is pragmatic. The universe communicates through resonance. When a theme arises repeatedly, in dreams, in overheard conversations, in the malfunction of technology, it is worth asking what is being mirrored. A practical method: for a week, document recurring symbols or meaningful coincidences without forcing interpretation. You might notice, say, repeated references to water, a conversation about ocean currents, a broken pipe at home, a film scene set by a river. Water universally symbolizes emotion, flow, the unconscious. Is there an area of life where you're resisting change? Where are you emotionally dammed up? The pattern points toward the work required. Reconstructing institutions and relationships. On a collective level, this knowledge dismantles the illusion of separateness that underpins modern crises. Environmental collapse, political polarization, and economic instability are all symptoms of a fractured worldview, one that sees humanity as apart from nature, individuals as isolated from the whole. The Secret reveals the antidote: relational intelligence. In business, this might mean designing organizations that mimic ecosystems rather than hierarchies, where feedback loops and adaptability replace rigid chains of command. In education, it suggests curricula that emphasize interconnectedness, how history shapes science, how art influences technology, rather than compartmentalized subjects. In relationships, it fosters the understanding that every conflict carries a hidden gift. The parts of ourselves we've disowned are often reflected in those who irritate or challenge us. Time as a sculptor, not a tyrant. Modern life is dominated by the clock, an artificial construct that linearizes time into a scarce commodity. But the Secret teaches that time is more spiral than arrow. Agricultural societies understood cyclical time, planting/harvesting. Hunter-gatherers experienced it as fluid, event-based. Reconnecting with these modes allows us to escape the anxiety of running out of time. Try this: for a day, replace clock time with event time. Instead of, "I'll work from 9 to 5, structure the day around natural transitions. I'll write until my focus wanes, then walk when the light slants a certain way." Observe how deadlines feel less oppressive when aligned with bodily and environmental rhythms. This is time as the ancients knew it, not a tyrant, but a dance partner. The alchemy of obstacles. Finally, the Secret transforms obstacles into gateways. Every limiting belief, every external setback contains the exact frequency needed for its own transcendence, like a puzzle designing its own solution. A person struggling with scarcity mindset might be guided to study resource cycles in nature. A leader facing team discord could find answers in the symbiotic relationships of old-growth forests. The principle is universal, the remedy is encoded in the wound. This is not passive optimism but active participation with reality's hidden logic. When a problem arises, ask, what larger pattern is this part of? What does this prevent me from doing, and why might that prevention be a mercy? Where has this appeared before in my life or in history? The answers are rarely linear, but they are always illuminating. We stand now at the threshold of revelation, not because some final curtain is about to be pulled aside, but because we've learned to see the stage for what it always was. The Secret was never truly hidden, it was simply waiting for us to grow into the kind of beings who could perceive it. Like a child who one day realizes that the letters they've been painstakingly copying are actually words with meaning, our awakening comes not through some esoteric revelation, but through the sudden recognition of what was before us all along. This journey through patterns, symbols, and practical integrations leads us to an inescapable conclusion: reality is far more intelligent, far more communicative, and far more alive than we've been taught to believe. The structures we imagined were fixed, time as a straight line, matter as inert, consciousness as trapped inside our skulls, are revealed as fluid expressions of something far more vast. The implications are both humbling and electrifying. We are not just observers of this grand design, but participants in its unfolding. The call to sacred perception. What's being asked of us now is not mere intellectual understanding, but a fundamental shift in how we engage with existence. It's the difference between studying sheet music and actually hearing the symphony. This is the transformational heart of the secret. The moment you truly see it, you can never unsee it again. The world becomes translucent, shot through with meaning. A streetlight flickering at a decisive moment, a stranger's comment that answers an unspoken question, the eerie rightness of certain coincidences, these become not anomalies, but expected expressions of a participatory universe. This isn't about adopting new beliefs, but about cultivating a new way of seeing. Like learning a language, there's a period where you must consciously translate before fluency emerges. Start small. When faced with a dilemma, ask, how might this situation be mirroring something deeper within me or my environment? When overwhelmed, look for the hidden rhythm. What cycle is completing here? What new one is preparing to begin? When encountering resistance, seek the embedded key. What quality is this obstacle forcing me to develop? The end of the secret as secret. Paradoxically, as more individuals awaken to this pattern recognition, that a secret ceases to be concealed at all. It becomes instead a shared lens, a kind of cultural peripheral vision that transforms how societies organize, how communities problem solve, how humanity navigates its future. We're already seeing glimmers, in regenerative design that mimics ecosystems, in holistic medicine that treats mind and body as one system, in the growing hunger for narratives that acknowledge our profound interconnection. This is the secret's ultimate purpose, not to be discovered, but to dissolve the need for secrecy altogether. Its full power emerges only when it moves from individual insight to collective operating system, when enough of us recognize that the solutions to our greatest challenges aren't out there waiting to be found, but are already woven into the fabric of how reality works. Your invitation to the unhidden life. And so we arrive at the transformational invitation, the call that has been echoing through these pages. Live as if the world is alive with meaning. Act as if your choices ripple through hidden networks. Create as if your work is part of some vast, beautiful pattern just now becoming visible. There's no need to withdraw from daily life to honor this knowing. Quite the opposite, the mystical is found in the mundane when we learn to see properly. A conversation with a barista becomes a chance to exchange more than coffee and coins, it's an energy exchange, a tiny thread in the larger weave. A traffic jam transforms from frustration to opportunity. What might this pause be giving you time to reconsider? Even suffering, when approached this way, becomes not meaningless pain but the grit that polishes the lens of perception. The secret was hidden in plain sight because plain sight is where it matters most. Not in some distant mountain monastery, but in your kitchen, your workplace, your relationships. Not in some future enlightenment, but in the next choice you make, the next thought you entertain, the next moment you truly show up for. And so we close where we began, with the ordinary that was never ordinary at all. The world has always been whispering to you. Now, at last, you're beginning to hear.